9 in the morning, 40 miles off the Iranian coast, the USS Abraham Lincoln and her 4 accompanying destroyers were cutting through the Persian Gulf at high speed, heading toward Bandar Abbas. Intelligence reports over the past 24 hours had flagged increased Iranian naval movements, patterns that suggested something was being prepared. The carrier group held its defensive formation and kept advancing. What the American radar operators already knew, and what the Iranian commanders did not know they knew, was that the 4 Iranian warships now departing Bandar Abbas had been tracked from the moment they cast off their mooring lines. The Iranian task force had been preparing throughout the night. 2 Moudge-class frigates and 2 smaller corvettes. Crews loaded anti-ship missiles into launch tubes. Torpedoes were moved into position. Ammunition was brought aboard. Final checks were completed on weapons and engines. The Iranian naval commanders, who had spent weeks planning this operation, believed they had identified the vulnerable points in American carrier defense. Their plan was geometrically elegant. Approach from 4 compass points simultaneously. The frigates from north and south, the corvettes from east and west. Create a perfect encirclement. Then fire everything at once. 32 anti-ship missiles striking the carrier group simultaneously from 4 directions, followed immediately by 16 torpedoes. Iranian commanders calculated that no carrier defense network could absorb a simultaneous multi-directional assault of that scale. They were completely wrong about that. At 7 in the morning, the 4 ships cast off and departed the base. Aboard the Abraham Lincoln, radar operators had been watching them since the moment they moved. The coordination of the departure patterns, the heading and speed combinations, the spacing between vessels as they fanned out across the Gulf, all of it pointed toward one conclusion. This was an attack formation taking shape in real time. The carrier group went to battle stations. Each American destroyer moved to its assigned defensive position around the carrier, weapon systems armed, fire control solutions being built against the approaching Iranian vessels. The encirclement the Iranian commanders were constructing was being watched and measured and countered before the first missile left a tube. At 8:45, the 4 Iranian warships began their final approach. They accelerated to maximum speed and started maneuvering into attack positions. The northern frigate closed to within 30 miles of the Abraham Lincoln. The southern frigate mirrored from the opposite direction. The 2 corvettes moved to flank from east and west. From above, the geometry looked exactly like what Iranian planners had designed, a perfect box closing around the carrier group. American commanders recognized the formation immediately, and the FA-18 Super Hornets were already climbing off the flight deck before the first Iranian missile launched. At 9, all 4 Iranian warships fired simultaneously. 32 anti-ship missiles streaked from the Iranian ships, 8 from each vessel, skimming low over the water toward the American carrier group. 16 torpedoes entered the water at the same moment, 4 from each warship, their seekers active and searching. The Iranians had coordinated the timing precisely to ensure that the defensive systems of the carrier group would be overwhelmed by simultaneous threats arriving from 4 directions at once. Within seconds, American radar systems had detected every single one of them. The 4 destroyers responded immediately. Defensive missiles climbed from their vertical launch cells and turned toward the incoming Iranian weapons. Jamming systems activated to confuse Iranian missile guidance systems. The first intercepts occurred 90 seconds after the Iranian salvo launched. American defensive missiles destroyed Iranian weapons at distances exceeding 20 miles from the carrier. The impacts scattered debris across the surface of the Persian Gulf as the defensive engagement worked outward to inward, layer by layer. More missiles continued launching from the American ships as the Iranian weapons closed the distance. The Aegis systems on each destroyer were building and updating intercept solutions continuously, distributing the defensive load across the formation rather than concentrating it on a single ship. By 9:10, American defensive missiles had destroyed 24 of the 32 incoming Iranian anti-ship missiles. The remaining 8 continued their approach. The destroyers employed their close-range defensive systems as the final layer of protection. Rolling airframe missiles launched from the American ships targeted the surviving Iranian weapons. 6 more Iranian missiles were destroyed at close range. The defensive systems tracked each contact and fired until it was eliminated. 2 missiles evaded all layers of defense and reached the Abraham Lincoln. Both malfunctioned and crashed into the water near the carrier without detonating. The shock of the impacts rocked the ship slightly. No damage, no casualties. While the missile engagement was running, the torpedo defense proved equally decisive. The countermeasures deployed by the destroyers successfully decoyed all 16 Iranian torpedoes away from their intended targets. The torpedoes ran out of fuel and sank harmlessly into the Persian Gulf. Not a single one reached an American ship. The multi-directional assault that Iranian planners had spent weeks designing, the attack they believed would overwhelm American defenses through sheer volume and geometric complexity, had produced 0 hits, 0 damage, and 0 casualties against the carrier group. The counterattack began immediately. The 4 American destroyers turned toward the Iranian warships, and the F/A-18s that had launched from the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck reached attack positions above the Iranian vessels. 16 Harpoon anti-ship missiles launched from the 4 American destroyers, 4 targeting each Iranian warship. The missiles flew low over the water toward their targets. The Iranian ships attempted to defend themselves with anti-aircraft guns, but the incoming weapons were too numerous and arriving from too many angles simultaneously. At the same time, the F/A-18s began their attack runs, diving toward the Iranian ships and firing air-to-surface missiles, making multiple passes as the coordinated assault overwhelmed Iranian defensive fire. The northern Iranian frigate was hit first. 3 Harpoon missiles struck the ship within seconds of each other, tearing massive holes in the hull below the waterline. Water poured into the damaged compartments. 2 F/A-18 missiles struck the superstructure moments later, causing secondary explosions. The frigate began listing heavily to port. The eastern corvette suffered a similar fate almost simultaneously. 2 Harpoon missiles penetrated the smaller ship's defenses and struck amidships. Fires broke out across the vessel. An F/A-18 missile hit the bridge, destroying the ship's command center. The corvette slowed to a stop, dead in the water. By 9:30, both the northern frigate and eastern corvette were sinking. Their crews abandoned ship as the vessels listed dangerously. The frigate rolled onto her side and slipped beneath the waves. The corvette remained afloat slightly longer before her stern rose into the air and she plunged downward. As these 2 ships went down, the southern frigate and western corvette turned away from the American forces and increased speed toward Iranian waters. The F/A-18s pursued them. Additional Harpoon missiles launched from the American destroyers tracked the fleeing vessels. The western corvette took multiple hits to the engine room, bringing her to a halt. F/A-18s made repeated attack runs until fires consumed the ship. The corvette capsized and sank 20 minutes after the first hits. The southern frigate fought to the end. Her crew fired every weapon they had at the attacking American aircraft and missiles. Multiple Harpoon missiles found their target regardless. The main gun turret exploded when a missile struck its ammunition compartment. Another hit the bridge. With critical systems destroyed and massive flooding throughout the hull, the frigate lost power and began her final descent. By 10:30, all 4 Iranian warships had been sunk or were sinking. The battle had lasted 90 minutes from the first Iranian missile launch to the sinking of the last ship. Debris fields and oil slicks marked the positions where the Iranian vessels had gone down. American helicopters searched the water for survivors. The F/A-18s received new orders before the last Iranian ship went under. Intelligence had identified 6 additional Iranian warships docked at Bandar Abbas naval base. The mission was to destroy them before they could put to sea and complicate the situation further. The fighters turned toward the Iranian coast. At 11 in the morning, Bandar Abbas was visible from the air, the 6 warships tied to their piers. The base's support facilities spread out below. The attack runs began immediately. Air-to-surface missiles struck 2 Iranian frigates at the northern pier. Massive explosions erupted as the weapons found their targets. One frigate's fuel tanks ignited, sending flames hundreds of feet skyward. The second took direct hits to its ammunition compartments, and the resulting explosions tore the ship apart. Additional F/A-18s attacked 4 corvettes at the southern pier. Missiles struck each vessel in rapid succession. One corvette's ammunition detonated in a fireball that engulfed the entire southern dock area. The American fighters also targeted the base's fuel storage tanks and ammunition depots. The fuel tanks erupted in explosions visible for miles. Secondary detonations from the ammunition depots shook the entire facility. Thick black smoke rose from fires burning across the base simultaneously. 15 minutes of attack runs. By the time the FA-18s departed, all 6 Iranian warships at the base were destroyed or beyond recovery. The support facilities were in ruins. The fires burning across the base would not be controlled for hours. The aircraft turned back toward the Abraham Lincoln, their mission complete. The entire engagement, from the initial Iranian missile launch to the destruction of the Bandar Abbas base, had lasted just over 2 hours. American casualties totaled 8 sailors with minor injuries sustained during defensive maneuvering, all treated aboard their ships and returned to duty. Iranian losses were catastrophic by any measure. The 4 attacking warships went down with the majority of their crews. Approximately 340 personnel lost. The 6 warships destroyed at Bandar Abbas accounted for an additional 180 casualties. The Iranian naval operation that had been planned for weeks, the geometrically coordinated encirclement that Iranian commanders believed would overwhelm American carrier defenses through simultaneous multi-directional saturation, had been tracked from the moment the ships left port, defeated at every layer of its execution, and answered with the destruction of everything Iran had positioned to conduct it. The encirclement that was supposed to be perfect never had a chance, because the carrier group had been watching it take shape from the beginning, and everything that followed was the consequence of that single fact.